You've done it 1,000 times without ever asking why. A quick kiss goodbye, a long kiss hello. It feels natural, almost instinctive, but the real story behind why you kiss is far stranger than you think. Kissing isn't universal. That alone should stop you. Roughly 90% of human cultures kiss romantically, but that means a meaningful chunk of humanity never developed the behavior at all. If kissing were purely biological, hardwired into every human on Earth the same way blinking is, that gap shouldn't exist. So where did this strange, intimate act actually come from? And why does your brain treat it as one of the most significant moments in a relationship? This is where the story gets complicated fast. For decades, researchers assumed kissing must be an evolutionary reflex, something baked into human biology millions of years ago. But anthropologist von Bryant spent years digging through historical and cultural records and found something that upended that assumption. The earliest confirmed written evidence of romantic kissing doesn't come from prehistoric cave art or ancient love poetry the way you might expect. It comes from Bronze Age texts in South Asia, dating back roughly 3,500 years. Sanskrit manuscripts describe people pressing their mouths together and inhaling each other's breath as a sign of affection. That's a strangely specific detail, inhaling breath. Because that's not what a kiss looks like today. Modern romantic kissing, lips together, sometimes open-mouthed, sometimes with movement, appears to be a cultural refinement of something older and stranger. An act that may have started not as romance at all but as a kind of ritual closeness built around breath and scent. Here's where it gets interesting. Some researchers believe kissing may have evolutionary roots in something you'd never guess: feeding behavior. Many primate species and some human cultures documented well into the 20th century practiced a behavior called promastication. A parent would chew food, then transfer it mouth to mouth into an infant's mouth. It sounds unfamiliar now, almost unsettling, but for a species without blenders or baby food, it was a practical way to give infants nutrients before their teeth could handle solid food. That mouth-to-mouth contact, repeated constantly between parent and child, may have built one of the earliest neural associations humans ever formed. Mouth contact equals safety. Mouth contact equals bonding. Mouth contact equals love. If that's true, romantic kissing didn't invent that association, it borrowed it. Then there's the theory that pulls kissing straight into the world of biology and mate selection. Psychologist Cheryl Kirschenbaum, who wrote extensively on the science of kissing, points to something remarkable happening the moment two people's mouths meet. Saliva exchange transmits an enormous amount of biological information: hormone levels, immune system markers. Even, some researchers argue, subtle genetic compatibility signals tied to something called the major histocompatibility complex, a set of genes involved in immune function. In plain terms, your body might be running a subconscious compatibility test every time you kiss someone for the first time. That would explain something almost everyone has experienced: a first kiss that feels magnetic, electric, undeniably right. Or just as often, a first kiss that instantly mysteriously kills the attraction that seemed so strong moments before. That sudden shift isn't random. Researcher Raphael W. Ledarsky, working out of Oxford University, ran studies showing that a majority of people across genders have ended a promising relationship specifically because the first kiss felt wrong. Not bad technique, wrong on some level neither partner could fully explain. W. Ledarsky's data suggested kissing functions as a kind of unconscious filtering mechanism. A final biological checkpoint layered on top of everything else: attraction, personality, timing. You can like someone deeply and still feel that filter reject them the moment lips actually meet. So if kissing carries that much biological weight, why doesn't every human culture do it? This is where Bryant's research gets even more surprising. Several documented cultures throughout history, including groups in parts of sub-Saharan Africa, indigenous populations in Australia, and communities across the Pacific Islands, historically showed little to no evidence of romantic mouth-to-mouth kissing before contact with outside cultures. Instead, many of these societies expressed intimacy through other close contact behaviors: nose pressing, cheek touching, breathing in a partner's scent directly rather than exchanging breath through the mouth. That detail matters more than it seems. Scent, not mouth contact, may be the true biological core of the behavior. The kiss, in many of its earliest forms, wasn't really about the lips at all. It was a socially acceptable excuse to get close enough to smell someone, close enough to gather the kind of biological information your nose picks up far more effectively than your eyes ever could. Which raises an uncomfortable question. Is romantic kissing, the version wired into modern culture through movies, songs, and centuries of poetry, actually a cultural invention layered on top of a much older, quieter instinct to simply get close? The evidence increasingly points toward yes. Consider how kissing spread. Historical trade routes moved more than goods and language. Bryant's research traces how kissing customs likely spread outward from South Asia through Bronze Age trade networks, gradually reaching the Middle East, then parts of Europe, carried alongside merchants, travelers, and cultural exchange over thousands of years. Behaviors don't spread like that if they're purely genetic. Genetic instincts don't need trade routes, they're already everywhere. Cultural behaviors do need trade routes, and kissing, it turns out, traveled like one. That doesn't mean biology plays no role. It means biology built the raw material, closeness triggers bonding hormones, scent carries genetic information, mouths are sensitive and nerve-rich, and culture shaped that raw material into the specific ritual you recognize today. Think about what actually happens physically when you kiss someone you're drawn to. Oxytocin releases, the same hormone tied to childbirth bonding and long-term attachment. Dopamine spikes, the same neurochemical reward triggered by food, music, and achievement. Cortisol, your stress hormone, tends to drop. Your body is running an entire chemical performance behind a gesture that takes less than 10 seconds. That's an enormous amount of biological machinery dedicated to something roughly 10% of human cultures apparently never needed. So here's the reframe. Kissing likely isn't one single behavior with one single origin. It's a convergence. Ancient feeding bonds between parent and child that hardwired mouth contact to safety. A biological scent-based mate assessment system your ancestors relied on long before language existed. And a cultural ritual, refined and spread through trade, storytelling, and romance, that eventually turned a practical closeness-seeking behavior into something poets have spent thousands of years trying to describe. Next time you kiss someone and it feels instant and electric, or just as tellingly feels instantly wrong, you're not imagining things, you're running a script your ancestors wrote for entirely different reasons than romance. A feeding bond, a scent check, a biological test disguised as affection. You've done it 1,000 times without ever asking why. Maybe now you finally know.